Tennessee WildCast is live on the air with the latest on hunting, fishing, boating, and all things outdoors. Make welcome your host, drummer and outdoor expert novice, Jason Harmon.
Hello, everybody. I feel like Annie M and Toto and Dorothy here. It's windy, but we're on Bridgestone-Firestone WMA here in White County near Sparta, Crossville area. And I guess it's right in between those two areas, but we're having fun, and we're going to be talking about all things WMA today and things happening in the Region 3 area here around Bridgestone-Firestone. We're going to have Mr. James Douglas with us and Wally Akins today. We're going to have two guests, and we'll swap them out here soon, but excited to be here, excited to be on this piece of property. Hey, thanks for listening on the radio, if you're listening out there on the radio. Also, don't forget iTunes. We're on iTunes, and you can subscribe to this show right there in your iTunes store, Google Play, any of those places you can download as podcast apps. You can find us out there. Also on Facebook. We're on Facebook every week. We're on YouTube all the time, and just something I wanted to bring up that the Tennessee Wildlife Resource Agency now has a Nextdoor account, and you can find us on Nextdoor. So if you want to follow us there, and we'll have events and we'll have alerts and just things like that to keep y'all up to date on Nextdoor. So that's a few announcements, but just thank y'all for tuning in, and we're excited to have James and Wally with us today, and then I've got Miss Mimi Barnes helping me co-host. So how you doing?
Happy to be here. I'm good. It's a little windy, like you said.
It is windy.
As long as I get some ruby slippers, I'm good to go.
Click, click. We'll be okay. But anyway, it's going to be a fun show, and we appreciate y'all bearing with us in the wind and the noise, but we'll make it. So
really thankful to have James Douglas with us today. James, how many years you been out here?
I've been here about 20 years. This will be my 20th year.
So when I tell people that our managers know their areas, 20 years of research has gone into James' knowledge of Bridgestone-Firestone.
Wow.
And he does know it, and our managers do know their areas. We always tell folks, if you have questions, give the manager a call. They're more than happy to answer questions.
Right, and that number is in the hunting guide, correct?
It is.
Yeah.
It
So
is.
all the WMAs are listed there in the hunting guide, and phone numbers for the managers, and you can get a hold of them and chat about the area and find out what you need to know. Sure.
Yeah, so let's dig in with James.
Sure. Yeah.
James, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background with the agency. So you've been here a while, and we'll get to that, but tell us a little bit about what came before that.
Well, I started with the state in 1987. I started with the Park Service, and was a park ranger at Roan Mountain over in East Tennessee, and then I had the opportunity to interview for Tennessee Wildlife and became a wildlife officer. Started off and done a little stint in Van Buren County, and then I was also the officer here in White County for 10 years. And then I became the manager of this Bridgestone-Firestone back in 1999.
And tell us we call it Bridgestone-Firestone, but tell us the true name of Bridgestone-Firestone.
It's a long one.
Yeah, the true name of it is Bridgestone-Firestone Centennial Wilderness Wildlife Management Area.
Woo.
And the Centennial name was put in there because of the existence of Firestone, who Bridgestone bought the property from or transferred to them. And they felt that they'd keep the Centennial part it means 100 years of the existence of Firestone Tire Corporation.
Okay, wow.
So, and that's who donated this beautiful property that we're on.
Correct. They first they donated 4,000 acres, and then about a year later they came back and donated another 6.
And you've been with it throughout that history,
Through
correct?
the whole time, yeah.
Yeah. Pretty amazing.
That's nice.
So tell us a little bit about Bridgestone-Firestone, the acreage. We'll get into some questions there, but let's start with that. It's a pretty big area.
It's pretty big. Like I said, it was Tennessee Wildlife had the opportunity to oversee the 10,000 acres that was given as a gift to the folks of the state of Tennessee, particularly those that hunt and fish. And as time has went on over the last 20 years, we've accumulated, this tract or that tract through Greenway and other organizations. And right now we're sitting somewhere around around 20,000 acres. 250 acres is actually in Cumberland County, and about 6,000 of it is in Van Buren County, which join White County.
Okay, wow.
And there are a lot of partnerships that you've mentioned, and we'll get to that in a little bit because we acquired more land last year, and I know you had a lot to do with that. But talk about some of those major features. If someone visits Bridgestone-Firestone, what should they expect?
Well, the main portion here is the 10,000 acres is up on what they call the Cumberland Plateau. So we're setting up on a higher elevation
Hence the wind.
Catching all the wind today.
And the wind blows here every day. We've never had a day where it doesn't blow, and that's because we're up on this elevation. The Caney Fork River, of course, goes through the middle of us, and that's the same river, of course, that feeds into the center hill, and you cross it many times on the interstate. But it's a unique place, and of course, you've got the highs, the lows, open ground here and there, but mainly most of it is either hardwoods or pines.
And I noticed when I was coming in that y'all are doing some quail work out here as well. It's considered one of the quail recovery areas. Tell us a little bit about that if you can.
Yeah, somewhere around about 3 or 4 years ago, the state decided to do different WMAs is like quail focal areas. Mm-hmm. And in Region 3, this was picked as the quail focal area for Region 3. Like you can see in the background here, we have a field here that's a little over 750 acres. And so our main concern here is trying to get the quail habitat reestablished or to grow here. It's one of the few places in the state that like I say, that we're trying to get this to increase the population. You cannot hunt a quail here for that reason. We're just trying to get the population up. And of course, the fields also is big into rabbit hunting. We get folks from Morgan County, any place in the state just about that come here and rabbit hunt, because like you see in the background, we've got lanes and such, but it's a very, very popular place for rabbit hunting.
And you do provide for everything, though. I've been out here even during dove season, and it's not a ton of hunters, but people do even come out for dove season.
Correct. We have a dove hunt, which is right behind us here, and the population of doves is not great. But we always tell people that, if you can hit them, you can limit out. But if you can't hit them, then no, you won't. But we do a lot of variety. In fact, every hunting opportunity that you have, you can do here. We do deer hunt here. Of course, our seasons, as far as big game, is a little bit different. You have to look at the hunting guide and, make sure when our dates close. But particularly deer season here on the Centennial part is we'll close around the first week of December, and that allows the rabbit hunters to come, and then they'll rabbit hunt here on into February. Wow. So you have to make sure the dates, when you can and when you can't. Mm-hmm. We also have another unit here that's called the Big Bottom Unit. Now, the Big Bottom Unit joins this one. There's no separation between the two. The main difference is the Big Bottom Unit is open statewide. Deer season, turkey season, and such, it's all same as statewide.
And I noticed the sign coming into the deer season. You have special regulations on antler restrictions and that kind of thing too.
Correct. It has to be 4 on one side. Same regulation you have at Catoosa, and that was something that was brought about several years ago for the fact that more or less we're trying to get the antlers a little bit bigger. That's what most people want to see. Mm-hmm. And such, and so we do have a restriction on those.
Are you seeing an increase in the antler size and population here as well?
Well, as far as population, if you come here and say we're going to see you overrun with deer, that's not going to happen. We have pretty big, as far as quality and things like that is pretty good here. The good thing about here is we have the same people that come for the last 20 years. We have a lot of people that come here to go camping, spend the afternoon, weekends. I mean, we've had them where people meet here, don't really care whether they kill a deer or not. Yeah. It's just they just come here to socialize, and they have really enjoyed that over the years.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's hunting is a big social sport as well.
Yeah, it is. It is. I like to see that tradition continue.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right. Well, let's see.
Well, let's go back to that. So we have the Big Bottom Unit, but last year there was a big land acquisition, and that took a lot of time. It didn't happen overnight. Talk to us about that process, the partnerships that you had, and what we can look forward to with that track now.
For us, like I said, that's how we've grown from 10,000 to 20. It's always been a partnership between another group. In the last several years, most of the land that we have acquired is in the what they call Big Bottom Unit. And of course, that most of it is in Van Buren County. And it's a good opportunity for us to acquire land, how to get money to pay for it and such. And that's like on those particular units, the Big Bottom Unit, you can ride a four-wheeler on it. Where like back to here, there's no four-wheelers allowed here. On the Centennial part, there's no horses allowed here. But as far as the big bottom unit, we allow horses and we allow four-wheelers. And particularly the four-wheelers is a way to get your deer, retrieve. So how do we do it? At Centennial part here is if you say you kill a deer, then there's somebody here every day, weekend or whatever, and then we'll go and help you retrieve it if it's over, say, where you can't get it. So that's the biggest thing that we do here is we try to help you get your deer out. And like I said, back to the big bottom unit, it's a total separate, different rules, different regulations, and it's just a different little atmosphere because you're kind of down in the Gulf, as they call it.
And that new track then kind of brought some connectivity. Correct.
When I started here, people don't look at it, is when you took 10,000 acres and then we added, say, 2,000 to it, our boundary line here was 75 miles. And of course, we painted it, and as the
people don't think about who paints those boundaries.
Yeah, it was an all
That's
day.
a lot of work.
It's a lot, and so when people say, "Have you been over the whole thing?" Oh yeah, because we've painted it 2 or 3 times. But over the years, every time we get like property, like our last acquisition last June, we got another 500 acres, and it squares us up to where now our boundary line probably ain't 40-something miles.
Wow.
So we don't have to paint in and out in little places.
I didn't realize that. I didn't realize that it brought that to...
It's been a very good thing for us to have other organizations and stuff and come and help us purchase land, because it has. This one, our last one, the 500 acres was a big key to us because we took ownership of one of the main entrances into this property.
Okay.
Wow.
That's fantastic. I always learn something.
Yeah. And speaking of learning something, when we were setting up for the show, James was telling us some stories and history about the property. He's big into history and enjoys reflecting back on this place and other things. But can you tell us a quick story or anything? One you mentioned, I don't know if you want to tell that one, about the guy who came across the hill there, ventured over on this piece of property once before.
Yeah, of course. I love history, and I'll tell this as quick as I can. I interviewed a lady one time and asked her, we look after 5 cemeteries here. And we took full responsibility of it. We still have a get-together the first Saturday in June. The family comes out, and we all go back in the Gulf. And when I say Gulf, we back home we call them hollers, but here they call them Gulfs. And we'll go with the family back to their old home places and things like that. There's 64 graves there, and technically we're responsible for those. And so over the years of history, I had a gentleman that actually his great-great-grandfather owned this property and got it somewhere around 1900. And then when I interviewed him, the most famous person that never set foot on this property, but across the street or road out here, was a guy by the name of John Wayne. Came here one time to look at a thoroughbred horse. And said he wasn't here but about 5 minutes, but he told me it was the biggest guy he ever saw in his life. But there is a lot of history here. There were 3 schools here and several families that lived in the Gulf until 1929. The flood came through, and most of them decided to move out. Well,
James does them a great service. It's a beautiful place. Thanks for being with us today, and we're going to talk a little bit more about the management side of it, because I know you burn a lot out here, a lot. And we'll have Wally Akins switch in here.
Yeah.
We'll talk a little bit about, Wally's real big into shortleaf pine restoration. And if folks can see the view behind us and you see those big pines, well, that's some of the shortleaf we're talking about.
Yeah.
James, thank you so much for
you're
being with
welcome.
us.
Thank you.
Thanks for the work that you do out here and the work you do for the agency, too.
Thank you.
All right, Wally, come on in here and we'll swap up. Appreciate you jumping in and coming to talk to us today about the shortleaf pine and some of the burning and stuff going on here. And you just got a recent promotion. Tell us about yourself. Tell us what your position is.
Mr. Wally Akins.
Yeah, Mr. Wally Akins.
Okay, thank you. I will. I started with the agency in 1996, and I started as a wildlife officer in Hancock County. Loved it up there. Loved the people. So if anybody's listening from Hancock County, hello.
Shout out.
Yeah, shout out to them. But I did transfer from Hancock to Meigs County to be closer to my hometown. I grew up in Monroe County. Then shortly thereafter, I had the opportunity to become the manager of Hiwassee Refuge, and I was there 8 or 9 years. Then was a private lands biologist for 4 or 5 years, and then small game biologist until recently. Last November, I was lucky enough to get a program manager position in Region 3. So
he's moved on up.
I know, I love it.
yes,
I've known Wally for quite a while. He's been a big help to me. I visited him in Hiwassee when you worked out there and wrote a paper for college about Hiwassee. He showed me around, so that was pretty cool. But I knew Wally back when he was Meigs County and working in that area, so we met pretty early in my life. So he's a great guy.
So during my time with the agency, Wally's really impressed on me the amount of work that we do for small game. We get questioned about that often, or sometimes we hear comments on Facebook about what are you doing for small game hunters, and you've really taught me a lot about that small game side of it.
Right, and a lot of our management for small game benefits deer and turkey, and those, let's face it, those two, deer and turkey, are our big species. That's our driving force really for the agency. But we are slowly kind of gaining interest amongst the agency to manage more for small game, and we do acknowledge it benefits a variety of different species, including deer and turkey.
Yeah, 750,000 acres here.
That's right.
750 acres.
That's right,
Yeah.
just here, and we have other areas on Bridgestone, as James mentioned. It's our quail focus area, so we're trying to enhance or create quail habitat across the whole area, or the appropriate places, put it that way, on Bridgestone. So we're doing that. We're creating some early successional habitat. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and one of the other aspects of it that Wally's really introduced me to, Jason, is that shortleaf pine initiative. And some of that goes hand in hand.
You're very correct. All that goes hand in hand together. And the restoration of shortleaf pine, we've lost about 70% of that species in the state of Tennessee, and it's necessarily not the tree itself, but it's the habitat that's associated with the tree. Shortleaf pine is a fire dependent species, or it's really acclimated for fire. So by using fire, you can promote the growth of shortleaf pine, but also enhance or maintain or create that early successional habitat associated with it.
Yeah, and so we have a couple pictures that our viewers will be able to see of some of the work that's done utilizing fire as a tool. And when we say fire, we're talking prescribed fire.
That's right.
It's very different from a wildfire. This is managed fire.
That's correct, and we use that in Region 3 about 7,000 acres a year. James here on Bridgestone is probably our biggest practitioner of fire in the region on one WMA. He will burn about 1,500 acres a year.
Wow.
And sometimes more. And earlier today, he told me he added up all the acres that he burned since he started, and it's over 30,000 acres.
Wow.
So that's kind of unique. But that 7,000 acre number is a figure that's in our annual reports, but that does not include the South Cherokee, which is a federal agency property that we help manage, and they'll burn, 10 to 25,000 acres just on that area. So. But fire is used, and one thing that's important is to create or have an objective for your fire, but it's used to maintain or enhance an area or keep it in a certain sterile stage, either from bare ground to mature forest. So, but you do have to have an objective, and it could be very specific, or it should be very specific, like for turkey brood habitat or quail nesting areas. So, we try to have an objective, try to use it when the conditions are appropriate to accomplish our objectives, and that's what we really focus in on.
Yeah, and as far as land management, we're managing wildlife through land management because they need that habitat. I always say habitat equals wildlife. But talk to us a little bit about that shortleaf habitat. What does that look like?
Okay, as I mentioned, it kind of goes hand in hand with the early successional, but because we've lost so much of that species, the range in Tennessee has shrunk so much. But normally you can find a shortleaf pine on almost any ridge. So if you have, and it goes back to objectives also, if you have a wildlife objective and you have some shortleaf pine in the area, the biggest bang for your buck may be to simply thin the forest and then use prescribed fire. In areas that you don't have a seed source or an existing population of trees of shortleaf pine, then we have planted shortleaf. So then you go back to what your objectives are. If it's for production forestry or if it's to create a savanna or a woodland, you can do that. But typically in a mixed oak pine forest with shortleaf pine in it, you will have scattered shortleaf throughout the area with a mix of shrubby habitat with grasses and that herbaceous component.
I was going to say, I think we had a picture of that, and it's actually you small game hunting up at Catoosa.
Yes.
And it shows that really scrubby habitat that would be good for deer, turkey, along with small game.
Right. That's correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
What other species? I know there are a couple species that were lost because of the shortleaf pine habitat decline.
Well, a lot of those songbird species that require that early successional habitat, we've seen a decline in all those. The whole species guild that would like that type of habitat, there has been a decline. Bobwhite quail is the main one. That's kind of our poster child for early successional habitat in Tennessee that has been declined, not just in Tennessee, but range wide in the whole southeastern and midwestern part of the country. So, I could name some: indigo bunting, field sparrow, rufous-sided towhee, all those species that prefer that type of habitat or have kind of been in decline the last few years.
Wow. So I also know that you work with many partners on the Shortleaf Pine Initiative, and they've helped not just on our lands, but other lands as well.
Yes, that is correct. We've had a lot of different partners, but mainly Tennessee, TNC, the Nature Conservancy in Tennessee is what I meant to say. Our Tennessee Division of Forestry, TDEC, and state parks. They've all been partners with us on this project, and also U.S. Forest Service. So there's been just a whole variety of different agencies and organizations.
Yeah, I guess my point for that is that we're also not always providing that funding.
That's correct, and we have been relying on a source of funding through grants. The Fish and Wildlife Federation has been very instrumental in supporting us financially on a lot of our restoration efforts.
And do we have future plans to expand some of those areas, hopefully?
We are in a grant. I think this is we're working on our fourth grant in 8 years.
Wow.
Currently, presently. So, and the end is not in sight. I think we anticipate as the cycle comes back around to submit proposals for more grants, we're ready to do that. So I think we will continue our efforts in the near future.
So I talked about the shortleaf behind us here out in the field. It's so beautiful, and those are very old trees. But talk about some of that area, maybe at Catoosa or some of the other areas that you're working on to see that shortleaf restoration.
Okay, yes. And the Cumberland Plateau itself is a focus area for shortleaf pine. So we are working on private lands, especially the Nature Conservancy works with private landowners to, number one, create a forest management plan for them and then assist them in that management, in implementing the management. So that's basically what we're doing on our wildlife management areas. Since we have control of that land, we've picked areas on Bridgestone and on Catoosa to actually either thin and burn, as I mentioned before, where we have remnant stands of shortleaf, or we plant. We've planted here on Bridgestone about right at 500 acres, and I think we're up to about 750 acres on Catoosa.
Wow, I didn't realize it was that high.
Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah.
We haven't planted in a few years because we're letting those stands develop, and then also we'll begin our management of those stands.
So when you're burning there, shortleaf is tied to that burning cycle, right? And they survive it just fine?
That's correct. In fact, they need fire to, not necessarily for the seeds to germinate, but it really helps to develop that the conditions so that seed can germinate. It creates bare ground, and that gets that good seed to soil contact that you would need for that shortleaf pine seedling to start. Shortleaf pine only produce a seed maybe every 2 or 3 years, so there's a lot of factors that go into getting a good regeneration stand started naturally.
Yeah. So I think about those initiatives and the uniqueness of all 4 regions across the state, and that's one thing that I see is unique about the plateau here.
Yes, that is correct.
And about your work here on the plateau. That along with with small game. I mean, I know you know so much more about that, and you're an avid hunter. From bear to pheasant, don't you go up north? I was trying to think. What did
grouse.
You do? Grouse, that was it.
Yes, go out west. I try to hunt them in Tennessee too. That's another species that's in decline. But there are a few grouse around still, so try to get out and enjoy the woods and get out with friends and have a good time.
Did I hear you telling a turkey story earlier? Did you miss one or almost have one? Was that?
I'm not telling. No comment.
I didn't hear the story, so I don't know the outcome. But.
It was a 24-inch bearded gobbler.
Whoa.
With 4-inch spurs.
No comment from me.
Well, we appreciate you being on today. And anything else you want to highlight that's going on in your area that you're working on and you want to bring up to the folks at home?
I don't really have anything in particular. I just think, our agency all together are trying to really benefit a lot of different wildlife species for the enjoyment of our citizens and our users of our resources. So, that's our main intent and our goal, and I think that's what we're striving for.
I think a lot of people know that, but then there's a lot of people that don't, and we're working hard for our customers, our constituents.
I often tell people read that mission statement because we sure do believe in it.
Exactly. Yeah.
We're lucky to walk into work every day. I am with such great folks.
Definitely.
That care about it. So thanks, Wally.
Well, thank you.
We love our job. We love what we do, and doing it for you also.
Look at our office.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. Well, Wally, we appreciate you. James, thank you for being on. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for watching. We're here every week, and this is Tennessee WildCast, and we appreciate y'all tuning in. Don't forget to follow us on iTunes, subscribe there, check out the other social media that we do, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We're on YouTube. And like I said, Nextdoor, we're now on Nextdoor, so follow us there. And we appreciate Mimi for jumping in and organizing the show today. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks.
So, all right. Well, we'll see y'all next time right here on Tennessee WildCast.
Thanks for tuning in. Stay connected with TWRA by visiting our website at tnwildlife.org and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Hey, it's all about Tennessee wildlife. It's what we do. Tennessee WildCast will be on the air again next week. We'll see you then.